Jazzcast Pros.
Today, I wanted to talk about something that entrepreneurs do. And in conversations that I've been having with entrepreneurs recently and in my own journey, have been dealing with. And I wanted to talk about what to do about it, how to get out of it, and kind of why we fall into these traps. Welcome to High Vibe Table Talks, the podcast to help you, the cautiously ambitious woman, remove mental barriers and take action now so that you can achieve your high vibe desires. I'm Rashawn, your high vibe curator, cheerleader, and accountability partner. The growth journey can be a roller coaster ride filled with highs and lows, expectations and disappointments, fear of the unknown. But here at the High Vibe Table, we take big dreams and break them into small action steps that can transform your life. One of my favorite words is catastrophizing. And I think that so many entrepreneurs do it, kind of like the what ifs in such a negative and like doomsday thinking through something. And so, have you ever found yourself kind of 10 steps ahead in your business, solving a problem that hasn't even been introduced yet? What if I launch and no one buys? What if people think that I'm annoying? What if I am successful and then can't handle it? What if people laugh at me? What if I invest in this and it doesn't work? Like I was recently talking with someone and they were like, well, what if I go back and I get a job that is like lower than I am right now? And then someone's looking at my resume in 4 years to go back to this and they're like, oh, you worked where? And it's like, you haven't even applied for job one yet. And you're thinking about in 3 years, if someone's looking at your resume, if you do get this job. And I think that we all just tend to fall into this. And first and foremost, I want to make sure that if you fall into this, your brain is trying to protect you. Again, our brains, our like caveman brains, are trying to keep us safe, and going outside of our comfort zone and doing something that we don't know the outcome of. That is our brain trying to protect us and pull us out of the present, where that's where action happens. And so, again, you can say, thank you, brain, for trying to protect me. Because a lot of times what it looks like is overthinking, not writing the email sequence because you don't think anyone's going to open it, not posting because of this perceived judgment that you think we'll have, just totally avoiding any reach out because of potential rejection, or maybe you are overbuilding systems for scenarios that haven't even like come to fruition. Like, oh, well, if someone says X, Y, and Z, then I need to do A, B, C. But like, you don't even have enough data to say that's actually what's going to happen. And so you're trying to work on like, instead of actually going out and putting yourself out there, you're like, well, I have to build all this stuff first before I put myself out there. And again, it's just a way to keep us safe. Why does it feel safe? It's fear dressed up as productivity. I'm going to do something without actually reaching out because I need to make sure that this is good, or I'm going to go over here and look busy instead of doing the work that I know actually gets me from A to B. I'm going to do like fun, whimsy work because it feels good instead of the uncomfortable potential like there can be rejection, there can be people who are like, who is she? That is a real possibility. But instead of doing that work, we're in the back end and making sure that our website looks perfect and redoing the copy for the fifth time because before we hit publish, because we're scared of what the outcome of our action could be. I have an episode where I talk about the many different outfits of fear. And sometimes it's dressed up as perfectionism. Sometimes it is dressed up as overplanning. Sometimes it's dressed up as procrastination. It can be dressed up as research mode. Again, it can be dressed up as making my copy perfect. And what I want to remind you of when you are in that scenario is that there are about 100 steps between where you are and the thing that you're afraid of, And let's just start by taking step one. Before the no one buys happens, you have to post, you have to invite, you have to have conversations, you have to refine messaging, you have to go and meet people. Before the I can't handle the growth, you have to get clients. You have to build consistency. You have to have that stuff coming in before you even know what your capacity is. And then you can adjust. I talk a lot about the messy middle in here, and so many of us don't even get to the messy middle because we don't take step one. We have to do the next right thing. And so, if you take anything from this episode, what is the next right thing for you? And as I was talking with the same person, we were talking about, well, because we went through this process where we talked about where she is, where she wants to be, and how to get there. And I was like, okay, well, how does this feel? Well, I don't know. It could be. And I'm like, okay, we're writing all of this down with dry erase. None of this is written in permanent marker. So whatever your next right step isn't permanent marker. It's all dry erase, it's all pencil. Like nothing is permanent in any decision that you're making. And so while you may look back and say, that wasn't the perfect step, it got you from here to there. So it was the next right step. Before we can pull ourselves out of catastrophizing and out of that doomsday thinking, what's the first step we need to do? Awareness. We need to become aware that we are getting into that mindset. And so when you're spinning on a problem or an issue or combating yourself when you need to take action, ask yourself, am I solving a now problem or am I solving a not yet problem? What really is the problem I'm trying to solve? And is it actually something that's in front of me? Or am I, 5 steps ahead in a scenario where I'm still on step two? Really get grounded and get into the present. I love to do this by taking a walk, and that just kind of lets my mind work through some things instead of being behind my computer and like trying to figure out exactly what it is. So, getting out and taking a walk, and then coming back and saying, okay, when I get back from my walk, I'm going to take the next right step. And really pulling back to the present of that next right step, not the final outcome, because that's not where you are in this moment. What is actually required of me today? I go back to one of my favorite ABC quotes: action builds confidence. And so the doing is what creates the confidence in yourself, not knowing the exact outcome and then taking steps there. It's just starting to take the action, getting into momentum, and then receiving data. What landed, what didn't, what worked, what didn't, what little tweaks do you have to make, and kind of go from there. You know, when I'm working with entrepreneurs, some of the favorite things are the ideation, like once I create this, then I can do this. And oh, what about that? And so I like to create a parking lot for future ideas. Like just because you can't act on this one right this moment, it's not going to go away. We're going to keep it in this little parking lot and remember it when you have the bandwidth and when you have momentum getting from A to B with this idea. Then we can add on. Because if you're giving 30% to three different ideas, it's going to take you longer to get to where you want to be versus giving 100% to this thing. And then once that has momentum and you have data, you can go back to those other things. I think the same idea for catastrophizing, create a parking lot for future problems, like write down the fear and label it and give validity to it. Because if you just, thinking about when you try to push like a beach ball down in the water and just ignore it, it pops up somewhere else. That can be the same thing for fears and kind of that doomsday thinking. If you just like ignore that it's even happening, it's still there. Like it still has latched. And it will pop up in other places. And so write it down, give it validity, and trust yourself that you will handle it when it's real. Give that trust back to yourself. Check in with yourself. And one of the things that I like to do is like a past a present and a future. Like, what would future you thank you for? What's something you could do right now? And then reminding of a way that you handled something tough in the past. I've gone through tough things. I completed a 5K when I hadn't run in years. Remember when I did that hard thing? You know, Present, what can I do right now or today to take one step forward? And then what will future you thank you for? Future you is not going to thank you for catastrophizing. Future you will thank you for moving, and future you will thank you for taking the next right steps and trusting that she will handle it. So, if you find yourself spinning out, catastrophizing, doomsday thinking, struggling with future problems, first of all, know that you're not alone. That is so part of this process. That is part of the messy middle. That is our brain trying to keep us safe. First step is awareness and then action. And so, awareness that thank you, brain, for trying to keep me safe and keep me out of discomfort. I'm going to put you right here because I'm going to take uncomfortable action to live the life that I want to live and achieve the goals that I want to achieve. I hope this was helpful. I thank you so much for listening. Feel free to share this with someone if you have felt that catastrophizing energy from them or with them, or they've been a part of that with you. And until next time, remember that big dreams and small steps will transform your life.